So, welcome to church. Happy Mother's Day. I just want to take a minute and welcome all of our campuses, those worshiping online, our jail locations. Come on, help me welcome our church family today. If you don't know me, I am Crystal, and Tim and I started this church over 12 years ago. And when we sit down and we talk about that season, we had no kids. And we try to think of all the things that we did, and we can't think of one. We clearly did not, we didn't take advantage of the time that we didn't have kids. But now we have 4, and I have a picture of them that I want to show you. We've got Noah. You know what? I should have confirmed how old he was before I got up here. Again, this service, I think he's 11. But like I said, I'm a little nervous, so I think he's 11, and Abby is 10, and Eli is 8, and Micah is 5. And I absolutely love being a mom. I remember being a little girl and just praying for the life that I am living right now. And I was reminded that a couple weeks ago, our family took a quick trip to Georgia, and we stayed at this lake house, and one morning we walked out behind the house on this floating dock, and when we got on it, it started to rock back and forth. And I wanted to make sure that my kids were careful on it, so I told them a true story about how when I was a kid, how I accidentally got thrown over a dock into a lake just like this one, and I didn't mean to scare them, but clearly I did, because my youngest Micah looked at me and she goes, "But I don't want to die. I haven't even become a mom yet." The good news is no one died, but I was reminded of being a little girl just like her and just wanting to be a wife and a mom, and I'm just so blessed that God has given me the desires of my heart. Another huge blessing in my life is this church. I am grateful for each and every one of you, and I'm honored that God allows me to be part of all the amazing things that He is doing here. So we are in the middle of a series called Built Different. And the term built different is a way to describe people who are able to do things that other people can't. People with extreme talent or unlike others. And I mean, is there a better way to describe moms? So I saw these and I figured I would share today. My kid, can you hold this? There's me carrying everything. Sure, just pile it on top of everything else that I'm carrying while you hold nothing. Go ahead. And the next one, invisible to everyone else in the house except for mom. It's a superpower we have. It's because we're built different. We can see things that everybody else can't. And then we've got, my husband could be standing in the middle of the living room with arms open wide, besides a neon billboard that flashed, "I can help you too." And my kid would still search me out in the bathroom to open up his Pop-Tarts. That's because we're built different. Come on, I know moms can relate to that. We open Pop-Tarts better than anybody else. But being built different is a good thing. And sometimes I feel like we do everything we can to fit in. Everything we can to look like everyone else and do what everyone else is doing. But as Christ followers, we are not called to be built like this world. We're called to be built in His image, to be set apart, to be light in the darkness. We are called to be built different. And the same way you would look at a bodybuilder and you would say, they're built different. That's how the world should look at us. You know, our family, our friends, our coworkers, those who know us should see something in us that isn't normal. And that's what this series is all about, exploring the ways that we as Christians are built differently than the world around us. So if you didn't know, I'm from Long Island, New York, the home of the country's least favorite accent. And you don't realize how bad it is until, when you're living there, until, I'm so far removed from it. We'll go back and visit, or I'll watch some old home videos and I hear myself talk and I think, yikes. No wonder why people hate our accent. It's bad. But 17 years ago, Tim and I got married and I moved to the South, and my accent has changed, but one thing that hasn't changed is my volume. I tend to be on the loud side. And my whole family is loud. We're always talking over each other when we're together, so the volume just keeps going up and up. And just recently, I was in a classroom teaching, and I'm about to start the lesson. I saw a little girl in the back. She had her headphones on. So I walked over to her quietly, and I said, "Hey, baby, I'm going to need you to stop listening to whatever it is you're listening to. Take your headphones off. I'm about to start the lesson." She looked up at me, and she said, "I'm not listening to anything. I'm shielding my ears from your loudness." Clearly, she had very sensitive ears. Anyway, besides being loud, if you know me, you know I like to talk. Not on this stage, but everywhere else. When I was in school, on every report card I got sent home, it said talks excessively in class. And at the gym I go to, they say less chatting, more splatting. And Coach Bobby's here, and he can attest to that. I like to talk. So at home, I found that some of my family members tend to tune me out. They have selective hearing. I'll be talking and talking and talking, and I'm just waiting for a response, and I get silence. Nothing. So I'm like, hello? And they're like, oh, I didn't know you were talking to me. Or I'll tell them something, and then 3 days later, they have zero recollection that I told them anything. So we've adopted a new policy in our house, where whenever I am speaking to you, when you hear what I say, you're gonna say heard. So for example, I say garbage goes out tonight. I wait to hear heard from my son, Noah. Or Eli has baseball practice tonight. I wait to hear heard from Tim. Or as soon as we get home, baths and showers, and they all say heard. And this way I know what was communicated was received. So if you're new here, please come back next week. You won't regret it. You'll want to hear Tim. He is the best of the best. But for the past few years, I have been speaking on Mother's Day. And per usual, I have spent the last several months leading up to this day trying to talk myself out of speaking, all the reasons why I shouldn't. You know, it's Mother's Day. I deserve the day off. And Tim is so much better at this than I am, and it's so much easier for our family when he does it, because it takes me so long to prepare, and my kids end up having to parent themselves during this time. I hate the sound of my voice. I get really, really nervous. You know, the list just goes on, and this is how it goes most years. You know, I'm trying to tell myself and God, and really anyone who will listen, why I shouldn't do it. And during this time of negotiating with God, he normally speaks something into my heart that I feel like needs to be shared. So I reluctantly say, fine, okay, I'll do it. But this year was different. For months now, I've been praying and asking God what I should speak about, and I've gotten nothing. Complete silence. I felt like I was being tuned out. You know, I never got a heard, no response. And I don't know if you've ever been on a call where you get those robotic prompts, you know, press 1 for billing, press 2 for payments, press 3 for technical support. And then by the 10th prompt, you're just like, representative, put on a human. No, just me. I told you I'm from New York, and sometimes that side comes out. So then finally you get the elevator music, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And now you're an hour and 4 minutes into the call, and at this point you're committed. You know, I didn't spend over an hour on this call to give up now. I am not a quitter. So you're walking around the house with it on speaker, and then you get the, you know, you're the next person in the line. Please wait on the line. And you're like, okay. And then you think you hear the music ending, and someone pick up, and you go over to your phone only to see call ended. The worst. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this situation in your life, but lately I feel like I've been on the waiting end of that phone call. I hear the music, but no representative is coming to the phone. No one is picking up. So as I was praying about today, I started to think, you know, maybe God didn't want me to share. Maybe he was giving me the year off. And as I sat there, I thought about it. I wonder how many people are going through or can relate to a silent season. A season where they feel like they can't hear God. A season of unanswered prayers. My guess is that a lot of us have, and even maybe currently are. And while going through silent seasons and not being heard or understood is not unique to us as Christ followers, I do believe how we handle the silent seasons should be. So today, I want to look at a mother from the Bible as a model for how to handle God's silence. We're going to read from 1 Samuel 1, and we're going to learn about a woman named Hannah, who went through a silent season, but persevered through it because she was built different. It says, Elkanah had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. Each year, Elkanah would travel to Shiloh to worship. Year after year, it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle. Each time, Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. Why are you crying, Hannah? Elkanah would ask. Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons? Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah got up and went to pray. O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime. As she was praying to the Lord, Eli watched her. Seeing her lips moving but hearing no sound, he thought she had been drinking. "Must you come here drunk?" he demanded. "Throw away your wine." "Oh, no, sir," she replied. "I haven't been drinking. I am very discouraged, and I was pouring out my heart to the Lord." In that case, Eli said, "Go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the request you have asked of him." "Oh, thank you, sir," she exclaimed. Then she went back and began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. The entire family got up early the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. Then they returned home to Ramah. The Lord remembered her plea, and in due time she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, "I asked the Lord for him." So I want to talk today for the next few minutes on how to handle silent seasons. But before we jump in, let's pray. God, we thank you that just as Jesus prayed, that you always hear us, that even when we can't hear you, we are heard by you. That our prayers don't fall on deaf ears, our tears don't go unnoticed. That even when we can't see it, we know you're working. God, we just thank you for showing up when we need you most. In Jesus' name. So the story starts out in chapter 1, letting us know that each year, Elkanah and his family would travel to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice. Year after year, it was the same. The first thing that Hannah shows us is that in order to survive the silent season, we have to keep showing up. Hannah kept showing up. Year after year, it was the same. She came to the tabernacle to worship, even though God was silent and her prayer had gone unanswered. She could have said, this is pointless, going to the tabernacle each year. Each year I go and I pray for a baby, and each year I leave disappointed. I leave empty. And in those days, it wasn't just hop in the car 10 minutes down the road and you're at the church, you worship and go home. It was a journey, and it was likely a long and hard road to the tabernacle. She could have said, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I'm gonna sit this one out. Because let's be real, it's easy to quit and to throw in the towel. It'd be easy to hang up the phone after it's been 2 hours and 37 minutes. This music, it's getting on my last nerve. I am tired of holding the phone to my ear. I am tired of hearing the same tune. I'm tired of not getting through. Just recently, we were playing spades with Tim's sister, Tabitha, and her husband, Derek, and we normally do couples, but this time we decided to do girls versus guys, which in hindsight was a mistake because girls are built different. And so we're in the middle of this very intense game, and the boys get set back. Needless to say, my husband was not happy. He doesn't like to lose, and he especially doesn't like to lose to his wife and his sister. And if you've ever been around Tim during any kind of competitive game, you know he is the reason why we cannot host a game night small group, and we are never coming to your game night small group, okay? He was mad. So instead of playing to 500, which is what you play to, he threw down the cards and he was done. Even though there was a small chance that they could have set us back, in his mind they were already defeated. He had no hope. But Hannah wasn't like that. Instead, when the time came to go, she gathered up her things and went with Elkanah, Peninnah, and Peninnah's 27 kids. In Psalm 109:1, it contains one of the most powerful prayers David ever wrote. It says, "O God, whom I praise, do not remain silent." Do not remain silent, which leads me to believe that God must have been silent while David was praising. But David didn't allow God's silence to keep him from worship. In another place, David said, "I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth." At all times includes silent times. That's because when you're built different, you don't take the silence as defeat. When you're built different, you don't take the valleys as failure. When you're built different, you keep being faithful. You keep trusting God despite the silence, despite the circumstance. You keep putting yourself in a position to hear from him. And I know it's hard. I know that there are some days that you have to force yourself to put one foot in front of the other. But some of us have prematurely thrown in the towel because we are frustrated and we are exhausted and we feel defeated and we've lost all hope and we've thrown in the cards like Tim did. We took the year off, headed to the tabernacle. But imagine if Hannah had done that. Imagine if Hannah hadn't gone to pray that one year. She may have never gotten her miracle. She may have never gotten her breakthrough. Her prayer may never have been answered. Hannah was persistent in her prayers, and she was persistent in her praise. Sometimes you have to be like Dory. just keep swimming, just keep swimming. People who are built different, they just keep stepping. They just keep praying. They just keep worshiping. You have to keep showing up. The next thing that Hannah's story teaches us is that if you're going to survive the silent season, you have to learn to ignore your enemy. The Bible says that Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year, it was the same. Peninnah provoked Hannah. God may have been silent, but Peninnah was speaking. While Hannah was already hurting and insecure, Peninnah took the opportunity of silence to speak humiliation and intimidation into her heart. And could you imagine each year that you're headed to the tabernacle, you know that your husband's other wife is going to taunt you the entire time? That year after year, she's going to mock you in front of all of her children. I think that would have been reason enough for Hannah to say, no thanks. Yeah, you guys go. I'll hold down the fort back here. Imagine how much willpower Hannah must have had. She was clearly built different, because I could tell you right now, Peninnah, she wouldn't have gotten the same response from me. New York Crystal would have come out. But Hannah refused to entertain the enemy's taunts. She never speaks a single word back to her. And I've found that when God isn't speaking, your enemy usually is. When God is silent, the enemy is screaming, and we need to learn to turn down the enemy's volume. And sometimes this is really difficult to do. I can't tell you how many times a day I have to say, ignore him or ignore her to my kids. They like to provoke each other. And you don't have to let them get under your skin. She's still doing it, Mom. He's still looking at me. Look the other way. And this is still difficult for us as adults. It's hard to drown out the world and all its darkness and negativity. It's hard to ignore those rooting against you, waiting for you to fail. I remember Tim and I were dating, and we went to someone's house for dinner. And we were all eating dinner around the table, having great conversation, when all of a sudden it took a turn. And someone looked at me and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a math teacher." And they looked at me and they said, "Well, what good is that going to do, Tim?" I didn't know how to respond to that. And I remember going home that night thinking, maybe I'm not good enough to marry Tim. God had a call on his life, and I was just a math teacher. For a second, I let that negativity overpower the voice of God in my life. I let the enemy creep in and second guess what God had in store. Hannah did not allow Peninnah's words to affect her life. She didn't allow the voice of Peninnah to overpower the voice of God. And Hannah's name literally means blessed. I'm blessed, but I'm barren. I'm blessed, but I'm empty. I'm blessed, but something's missing. And the enemy never talks about how blessed you are, just about how barren you are. Never about what you have, but what you're missing. The enemy likes to remind me often how I lost my mom to cancer 2 years ago. He likes to point out that I prayed for a miracle and I didn't get it. He likes to fill my head with whys. Why me? Why her? He wants me to focus on the barrenness in my life. He likes nothing more than for me to dwell on the emptiness. And before long, you can't even see the blessings you do have because you're fixated on the ones you don't or someone else does. While you may doubt whether or not God hears you when you hear him, your enemy knows that just because he's not speaking doesn't mean he's not working. And he knows that if you stay faithful, God will come through in your life. So he turns the volume up to keep you from continuing to listen for God. So if we want to survive the silent season, some of us need to do what the little girl in my class did and put on our headphones. And we need to drown out the loud voice of the naysayers, the loud voice of negativity, the voice of doubt. We need to ignore the enemy. The Bible goes on to say, Hannah got up and went to pray. Eli the priest was sitting at his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. When God is silent, we have to keep showing up. We have to ignore the enemy, and we have to pray honest prayers. You know who prays honest prayers? Kids. Kids pray honest prayers. And I have some that I wanted to share with you today because I feel like we can learn from them. Dear God, thank you for the baby brother, but what I prayed for was a puppy. Okay, I like it because it's appreciative, but also honest, right? Like, thanks, God, I appreciate the baby brother, I really do, but it's not what I asked for. Okay, so thankful and appreciative, I like that. The next one, dear God, I bet it's very hard for you to love all of everybody in the whole world. There are only 4 people in our family and I could never do it. It's honest. You know, he said, love your neighbor like yourself. God, I can't even love the people who are living with me. Help me. Very honest. And you know how they say honesty is the best policy? Well, the truth is we like to hide stuff. You know, it's human nature. Just recently, I caught my son, Noah. He was getting ice out of the refrigerator. And as the ice was coming out, I noticed all the ice that was falling all over the floor. I didn't think anything of it when I walked past him. But then when I turned around, I noticed that he was just kicking all the ice under the fridge. So I said, Noah, what you doing? He looked down and he looked at me and he said, oh, this is what I do when stuff falls on the floor by the fridge. Excuse me? You kick stuff under my fridge rather than pick it up? He said, yeah, it's kind of hard to pick up ice, don't you think? No, I don't think. He said, you know, it's just so much easier for me to kick the stuff under than to actually bend down and pick it up. I'm like, seriously, who does that? And then I realized, we do that. That's what we do with the messes in our lives. You know, nothing to see here. Instead of doing the hard work of bending down to pick it up and dealing with our problems and being open and honest with God, we kick them under the refrigerator or sweep them under the rug, as if we can't see it, it's not really there. But the truth is, at some point, that refrigerator is gonna break, and the repairman's gonna come and he's gonna take the fridge out of that hole, and all the mess and all that junk is gonna be exposed. I found that if you can't be honest with yourself, you can never be honest with God. Self-awareness is the starting line for change. We have to take an honest look at ourselves and tell the truth about what we see. And I don't mean what you see when you pick up your phone and you use those cool filters when you see yourself. Because let me just tell you, my friend Allison came over the other day and she introduced me to a filter called Bold Glamour, and it makes you look amazing. I texted a picture of myself to Tim. I said, hey, help me figure out a way for me to post this bad boy. You know, nonchalantly, like just cheering my boys on at baseball, looking like a celebrity. Because we like the filtered version of ourselves better. But the truth is, God doesn't. God prefers the real you. He likes my gray hairs and my wrinkles and my smile lines. He wants us to be upfront with him. He already knows your heart. He knows the issues that you're going through. He knows the doubts you have. He knows the pain that keeps you up at night. And yet we act like things are okay. God longs to hear your heart. Hannah didn't pretend that she was okay. She didn't filter her prayers. She was completely open and honest with God. And she took her pain and despair straight to God, to the only one who could change the situation. Peninnah tried to intimidate her, and her husband tried to reason with her, but Hannah didn't respond to either one of them. Some of us need to stop talking to those who can do nothing for you and take it to the one who can do everything for you. Instead of going around complaining about her barrenness, Hannah went straight to God. You know, when you have worry, take it to Jesus. When you have issues, take it to Jesus. When you have heartache, take it to the only one who can heal it and change it. And when you take it to God, you don't have to edit it. You don't have to censor your prayers. God doesn't expect you to disguise the truth. Being built different it means understanding that getting healed requires getting honest. God won't heal what you hide. Tim said it best a couple weeks ago. He said, God won't fix what you fabricate. If you want to get healed by God, you've got to get real with God. You know, God, I'm hurting. God, I'm tired. God, I'm a mess. Hannah was completely honest with God, fully transparent when she poured her heart out. The Bible goes on to say she made this vow, O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime. The fourth lesson for silent seasons that we have to do is push toward purpose. If you know how Hannah's story continues, you know that God does answer her prayer. She does get pregnant and she does have a son. And she does indeed keep her vow to the Lord. When Samuel is weaned, she takes him back to the tabernacle and leaves him there to serve the Lord for the rest of his life. And I don't know about you, but in this day that we're living in, I don't let my kids walk to the end of my driveway to the mailbox without my eyes on them. So I can't imagine leaving my child anywhere, even the church. But the challenging truth of parenthood is that our kids aren't ours. They are given to us by God, but they are his. And that's not just true of our children, everything that God gives us. We aren't owners. We're stewards. Our children, our gifts, our resources, our relationships, they're all meant to be used for the glory of God and the good of others. Everything changed for Hannah when she stopped praying for her preference and started pushing toward her purpose. She finally got to a place where she said, God, I don't want a baby for me. I want a baby to give back to you. And I have to believe that this was a really hard prayer for her to pray. I have to believe that as a mom, that she'd want to raise her baby. I have to believe that when she finally had a kid, she'd want to hold him so tight and never let him go. But instead of praying for her preference, she prayed for God's will. And I think sometimes God can be silent because our prayers can be selfish. James 4:3 says, when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. James says that God may be silent because your motives are wrong. You want what you want, and maybe that's not what God wants. So I told you earlier that kids can pray super honest prayers. Well, they can also pray super selfish prayers. And I've got one I want to share with you. Dear God, if you give me a genie lamp like Aladdin, I will give you anything you want, except my money or my chess set. And if we're honest, I think we treat God like the genie in the bottle, that he exists to grant my every wish. But the truth is, God doesn't exist to facilitate my preferences. I exist to bring about God's purpose. Samuel was not God's gift to Hannah. Samuel was God's gift to the world. And until Hannah could give Samuel to God, God couldn't give Samuel to Hannah. I have found that the prayers that God answers are always the prayers that align with his purpose. Remember when Jesus was in the garden and he was praying, Father, please take this cup from me. Can't we bypass the cross, bypass the suffering? He got silence. And he goes on to say, nevertheless, not my will, but yours. Jesus said, when you pray, pray thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Those are the prayers that God always answers. And I know some of us feel like we have prayed unselfish prayers. We feel like we have asked and didn't receive. We knocked and no one came to the door. We sought after God only to sit in silence. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't have the reasons why our unselfish prayers go unanswered. Why God wouldn't heal a loved one or why you never got the miracle that you prayed for. And I know we so badly want the answers to all those whys. We so badly want to know what possible good can come from this. But the truth is, we're likely not going to get those answers here on this earth. We're going to have to wait until we get to heaven and we see God face to face. And you can go ahead and get in line behind me when we get there. But until then, I am not going to seek my own way. I'm going to seek God's will, whatever that is. When you are built different, you keep pushing forward beyond your preference and toward your purpose. And when we live for God's purpose, we can do the final thing that Hannah did. Eli said, go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the request you have asked of him. Oh, thank you, sir, she exclaimed. Then she went back and began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. The entire family got up early the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. This means that when we finally move from our preference to God's purpose, we can go in his peace. Go in peace. When Hannah poured her heart out to God and believed that he had heard her, she received Eli's encouragement to go in peace. She laid out her burdens to God, and then she left them there. When she brought her anguish to the Lord, laid it there, and prayed his will be done, she was no longer sad. Her prayer had not yet been answered. She didn't read the 2 lines on the pregnancy test and then was no longer sad. She was no longer sad after she laid out her heart to the Lord and believed that the Lord had heard her cry. When you're built different, you understand that God gives you the peace that passes our understanding, the peace that isn't determined by what's going on around you, but what's going on inside of you. I want to encourage you to do what Hannah did. It may be hard, but go in peace. The sickness may still be there, but go in peace. The situation may never change, but go in peace. And I know that Mother's Day is a difficult day for many of us. I know for a lot of us, today is a reminder of the mother we lost. For some of us, it's a reminder of the mom we want to be so badly and for some reason can't. Today is a reminder of the loss and the emptiness that lives inside of us. And I think that it's easy to become callous and bitter and turn off our ears and close off our hearts to God because we feel like he isn't listening. He's not responding. I think it's easy to get into a silent or a dark season, to look around at our circumstances and wonder, when will they ever change? When are you going to turn this around? And I'm not saying I have all the answers. And I'm not saying that I currently don't struggle with this. I don't have the answers to why God is silent in our seasons. But here's what I do know. I'm going to keep showing up. Hannah kept showing up despite all circumstances, because I know if I keep showing up, he's going to show up. And I'm going to ignore the enemy who is trying to discourage me, trying to prevent me from walking in my calling. And I'm going to pray honest prayers. I'm going to take the filter off, and I'm going to be completely open and honest with myself and with God. And then I have to push toward purpose. I have to give my plans over to God. Your will be done in my life as it is in heaven. And when I do these things and give it over to God, I can go in the peace that can only come from him. So today, we're going to pray, knowing that even if we don't hear from him, we know that he surely hears us. God, I thank you that you're always listening for our voice, that we could come to you whenever we need. And God, I pray for those who feel far from you today, far from your presence. I pray for those that want to step into a relationship with you. The Bible says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. So today, God, we are taking a step toward you. We are drawing closer to you. Cleanse us, forgive us, save us, restore us. Make us whole from the inside out. Let us not leave here the same. And for those of us who are following you, find yourselves in a silent season, I pray that you give us the faith to know, even if we can't see it or hear it, we know that you're working all things together for good for those who love you, who live for your purpose. And I pray for all the moms in our church today. I pray you give them the grace and the strength to raise world changers like Samuel. And I pray for those who may be missing a mom today, or maybe grieving the child that they were never able to have. I pray you give them the faith to know that they are not unseen, that they are not unheard, and they are not unloved. And you are still writing their story. And I thank you for all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.